That was attractive. Hi guys, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a tag for all of you. I will be doing the genre book tag. This tag was originally created by Harriet Rosie and I was tagged by April from Getting Hygge with It. I will link both of their channels down below. We have 7 questions, so let's get to it. Question number 1 is your favorite genres. And I have to say, I don't read a lot of quote-unquote genre fiction. The largest category, which I know there's debate as to whether or not this could be considered a genre, because literary fiction can technically be so many different genres or fit into so many categories, but I have to say my favorite books tend to be books that are more literary. And if I had to pick a genre, again, I don't know if this is even technically a genre, it's historical fiction. I really enjoy reading books that are historical. I just find them fascinating and interesting, and I feel like I learn a lot. Now, I read a lot more contemporary now than I ever did before. When I was growing up, I read almost exclusively historical fiction and through college in my early 20s. But BookTube and just being more aware of what is being published and out in the world has definitely caused my reading to evolve. But if I could pick like a quote-unquote perfect book, it would be literary and it would probably be historical. But I do want to make a comment about the fact that I do also really love reading classics. And again, that's not really a genre because they can be so many different things, but I think it's fascinating to read books that have stood the test of time, some by hundreds of years. And the fact that so many years and changes socially, economically, scientifically, technically, have happened in the time that those books are written, and yet people still find them to be something they can connect to, I think is really interesting. And I love to find out what exactly people are connecting to while reading a classic and an old book. So that's really not a straightforward answer, but I don't know. Don't come to my channel if that's what you're looking for. Question number 2 is your least favorite genres. Now, I'm going to kind of combine this with question number 4, because I can't say that there's a genre that I don't like, but I definitely haven't tried every genre. I don't read a lot of mystery, really ever. I don't read strict mystery books. I don't read horror books, which is question number 4, a genre you don't want to try. I don't like to be scared. It is not something that I enjoy at all, nor have I ever. So the idea of reading a book that is meant to terrify me just doesn't sound like a good time. And I really have no intention of ever picking up a horror book. Now, there are books that freak me out, can be intense or creepy. I'm totally down for that. But strictly horror, no thank you, I'm not into it. So if I could say that's my least favorite genre, but not really because I haven't ever read it. But I don't intend to. I don't do scary movies, I don't do jump scares, I hate all of that. All of it. So I don't really have a least favorite genre because I mostly enjoy what I read, and I haven't found one particular genre to be especially disappointing to me. I think my relationship with certain genres has changed over the years. I did a video a couple years ago about how my experience of reading romance novels has changed a lot, but I don't have any one genre that I would say is my least favorite. It might be out there, I just haven't found it yet. And question number 3 is a genre you want to try. Like I mentioned, I've never really read cozy mysteries or books that are explicit mysteries, at least not as an adult. Growing up, I did occasionally read Cat Who books by Lillian Braun, but that was the extent of it. And I think maybe that might be a good thing for me to read, especially now as I'm trying to read a little bit lighter of topics and stories than I typically do. But another one that I would like to try more often, I've definitely read it before, but is sci-fi. I used to read sci-fi growing up, a lot of Anne McCaffrey, and I really enjoyed them, and I would like to give it a shot again as an adult as my reading has changed and just see how I take to it. I would guess that I would enjoy it because I like a lot of things. But yeah, I would just keep it simple with probably cozy mysteries. I should really give those a shot and then read a little bit more sci-fi. And question number 4 was the horror question. So the horror question, a genre you don't want to try / horror question for me. So we'll go on to question number 5, which is a genre you're not sure about. So I have to say, again, I don't know that this is technically considered a genre. Maybe it is. It's a type of book or writing, and that is poetry. I have only dabbled, and I think that is even a very generous word to use in regards to my experience reading poetry. I have read some poetry, almost none. I am one of those readers that can find it to be a bit intimidating, although I've, watched videos from other booktubers who encourage people to read poetry, and that technically there's no wrong way to read poetry or understand it. And I completely agree with that, but I just don't find myself drawn to it. I prefer more of a traditional narrative in the form of a novel. So that's one, and then also thriller, but I haven't really read thrillers again, but maybe I would like them because there are some books that I think have those tense vibes that I really enjoyed, but like played down quite a bit. I will be reading a thriller whenever my local book club gets back together again, but I might like it, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. I don't know. So we're not sure about that one. And then also graphic novels or just graphic books. There are some graphic books that I have read, like here by, oh gosh, what's his name? McGuire, I think is his last name, that I absolutely love, that has almost no words in it. And I've read, some saga graphic novels or issues, and a smattering of other graphic books. But again, I just don't find myself drawn to it. I am a word person much more than I am a visual person, if that makes sense. But I have enjoyed a lot of the graphic novels I've read. I just don't find myself repeatedly thinking or going back to them or searching them out, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I'm not sure that it does. Question number 6 is a genre blend you love. And I already touched on that a bit, and that is that I really love literary books that are also historical. But I think something else that I enjoy that I know a lot of people actually really don't, but I do love when there's a romance component to a book. It doesn't at all need to be the focus. I do read romance novels. I do like them. I enjoy them. But I really, really love when a literary book can successfully depict a relationship, especially a relationship that is healthy and is successful and beneficial for all parties. And I love it when a character finds that, just their other person. And it's just, it makes me happy. It makes me smile. It's just a bonus when I read a book that I don't necessarily think will have that, or I'm anticipating that it'll have that component to it, and then it does. I enjoy that. I do. But I don't think there's any other like blend of genre that I can think of that I'm like, oh, I really like this combination. So yeah. Question number 7 is a genre-defying book, and I have several to share with you guys. The first of which is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. I would definitely consider this book to be literary. In this book, we are following a woman named Lois who is really fed up with her job in San Francisco working as a computer programmer, and kind of through a series of serendipitous events, she leaves her job and becomes a baker, specifically of sourdough, but kind of intermingles technology with that. And this book really has a lot more depth to it than I anticipated, but the ending is also so quirky and interesting and not at all what I expected, especially for a book that I would consider to be literary. So I'm not going to say exactly why I think it's genre defying, but if you want to know, you should read it. And then one of the other books that again, completely caught me by surprise. I've talked about this book a lot recently, but that is The Mapmaker's War by Ronlyn Deming, and this is book 1 of, oh, what is it? What is it? I can't remember. I'm not sure. I can put it up on the screen or write it down below. But this is a fantasy book, and I picked this book up anticipating just a lighter, short fantasy read. And there are fantasy components, but in this book, that's not at all the focus. It's about the map maker, who is a woman who grew up in a fairly well-to-do family that was, that her father was a counselor to the king of their empire, and her best friend growing up was the prince. And this is about her experience betraying her kingdom in the eyes of her kingdom and her regents, I guess you could say, and her experience meeting a group of people that live very peacefully, what you would call a utopian lifestyle. And this book had so much depth. Themes of motherhood and loss and grief and identity and, you know, post-traumatic stress and, you know, politics within a government and neighboring countries and differing peoples and prejudice, and all of this is so successfully packed into this teeny tiny book. And like I said, there are fantasy components, very obvious ones, but they tend to be more subtle in the narrative itself. But this book just astounded me, and I recommend it so much. And then the last book is a book that I've also raved about, especially recently, and that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is a YA book, and this book, again, apparently this seems to be a theme for these books, is that it had so much depth, in my opinion, for a YA book, and the writing was stellar. I can't say that I've read a ton of YA literature that has just been phenomenally written. And when I was reading this book, I did not anticipate annotating it, and then I couldn't help myself, and I've never had that happen with a YA book before, or any book really, that I didn't intend to annotate and then I just felt compelled to do so. But I think this book is also genre bending in that there's this magical, mythical component to this story, in that Aphrodite is telling her favorite love story. And that makes you think that it's going to be this lighter book, but this book takes place during World War I, and a lot of tragic things happen. There are discussions of race and what it means to be a woman and the choices that you make or get to make or don't get to make. And I thought all of it was just so incredible. This book has so much more going on than it's packaged as, and it totally caught me by surprise, and I absolutely adored it. Like, adored it, loved it, can't recommend it enough. Even if you're not a romance reader, a YA reader, a historical fiction reader, a fantasy reader, it doesn't matter. I think everybody would get something out of this book because it is so well done, and it just defied any genre label you could put on it. All right, guys, there you have it. As you can tell, I don't do a whole lot of quote-unquote genre reading, or do I give a lot of thought to it? So it was really interesting to think about these questions and realize just how ambiguous I can be in my reading and reading choices and selections. But if you guys haven't done this tag and want to, please do, and let me know if you do. I think it's really interesting to hear about how people think about their reading and the books that they're drawn to, etc., etc. I find it so interesting, as I always say, to learn more about how and why a reader is the way they are, make the choices that they do. I love it. The psychology major brain that I have just can't get enough. But if you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a like, and if you loved it, please subscribe, and we will see you in my next video. Happy reading! Is a genre.
I love you, bye.
What? No. You just interrupted me.
Interpreted? I did interpret it, all of it. I interpreted everything. Is there anything you need me to do?
Other than not bug me? No.
Okay. Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
Bye, book tip.